Have you ever just watched a child play? There's a magic there, a wild, untamed spark that sees a cardboard box as a castle and the wind as a friend. Back in 1968, NASA wanted to find geniuses. They tested 1,600 5-year-olds and found something breathtaking. 98% of them were creative geniuses. But as those same children grew, that magic started to fade. It wasn't that they lost their minds. It was that the world began to narrow their vision. By the time they reached adulthood, that 98% had withered away to just 2%. It's a quiet, heartbreaking loss that we've come to accept as normal. As parents, we want the world for our little ones. We buy the best toys and the smartest apps, hoping to give them a head start in life. But there's a paradox here. The more we enrich their time with structured lessons, the less room we leave for their own inner voice to speak. Creativity isn't a skill you learn from a book or a screen. It's a biological trait, a precious, innate part of being human that we are meant to protect. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are our well-intentioned activities actually, preschooling, the genius out of the next generation before they even find their feet? We've started valuing the right answer over the interesting one. And in that shift, we might be inadvertently silencing the very imagination they need to thrive. Today, let's take a breath and look at 5 common activities that might be doing more harm than good. Let's find our way back to that 98% together. Have you ever sat quietly and just watched them? It's like looking into a world where everything is still possible and nothing is out of reach. But sometimes, without even realizing it, we start narrowing that world down for them, guiding their hands toward the correct way of doing things. We call it learning, but sometimes it feels more like pruning a tree before it's even had a chance to really bloom. In our world, we're often taught there's only one right answer. One straight line that leads us directly to the finish. That's convergent thinking. It has its place, of course, but it can feel a bit like a cage for a heart that wants to soar. It's the weight of the right way over the joy of the any way. It turns discovery into a series of checks and balances. But then there's the other side. The wild, tangled forest of the mind, what we call divergent thinking. This is where a cardboard box isn't just a box. It's a castle, a time machine, or a secret hidden deep in the woods. It's messy. It's unpredictable. And it's where the magic truly lives, tucked away in the what-ifs and maybes. But here's the truth that's hard to hear. Many of our educational activities act like a lawnmower in that beautiful forest. We want things to look neat. We want the edges trimmed and the rows perfectly straight because it looks like progress. But as the blades spin, they cut down the wild ideas to make room for something predictable and something safe. Think back to when you played just because you loved the feeling of it. No one was watching. No one was grading. That's intrinsic curiosity. But when we overstructure, that fire becomes a flicker of compliance, doing it just to get the good job. They start to trade their wonder for a gold star, learning to perform instead of learning to explore. Deep inside their growing brains, those vast, sparkling webs of connection begin to pull back and go quiet. The vibrant highways of "how many ways can I do this?" become a single, dusty road of "is this what you wanted?" We have to ask ourselves, are we building a perfect garden for our own peace of mind, or are we losing the soul of the forest? We all want the very best for our little ones, don't we? We choose their toys and lessons with so much love and a heart full of hope. But sometimes, those things labeled educational can quietly dim that bright, creative spark we're trying so hard to protect. Let's take a gentle look at 5 common activities that might be doing more harm than good to their wild, wonderful imaginations. First, we have those high-tech, learning apps. They're shiny, they're loud, and they promise to teach our children everything in record time. But those constant, click-to-win sounds, they're just small hits of dopamine, teaching them to chase a reward rather than the joy of the journey. It replaces the deep, messy struggle of figuring things out with a simple tap, making real-world problems feel far too slow and frustrating. Real learning is a slow burn. It's a puzzle that takes time to sit with, not an instant win handed out by an algorithm. When the app does all the heavy lifting for the brain, the child's own inner world starts to grow a little too quiet. Then there are coloring books and paint-by-numberses. We see them as a way to practice focus and learn our colors correctly. But we're inadvertently teaching them that success is defined by staying perfectly within someone else's lines, never venturing beyond them. It tells a child that there's a right way to see the world, and sadly, it's a way that someone else already decided. They start to fear the white space. They start to wonder, what if I put the blue where the red is supposed to go? True creativity isn't about following a map. It's about being brave enough to wander off the path and see what happens. Early academic drills. We feel a surge of pride when they memorize facts so young, but we have to ask at what cost. Rote memorization is like building a house on sand if the heart and brain aren't ready for that abstract logic just yet. Their little minds are wired for stories, textures, and feelings right now, not just cold, hard symbols on a card. When we push for the correct answer too soon, we risk losing that beautiful, curious why that makes their childhood so magical. Let them discover the world through their senses first. Let them feel the earth before we ask them to label it. Then we have overstructured playdates. We want them to get along so badly that we step in and direct every single scene. We schedule every minute, making sure there's no room for a single moment of boredom or a potential disagreement. But it's in those quiet, slightly awkward gaps that children learn the delicate and vital art of negotiation and compromise. Boredom is actually a gift. It's the rich soil where their own unique ideas finally get a chance to sprout and grow. When we stop being the directors of their fun, they find their own brilliant roles in the theater of play. And finally, those hyper-competitive extracurriculars. The focus shifts so quickly from the joy of the game to the weight of the trophy. The joy of the process, that messy, sweaty, wonderful doing, gets buried under the heavy pressure to always come out on top. If they only play for the gold star or the applause, what happens to the music inside them when the room goes quiet? We want them to love the feeling of the grass under their feet, not just the metal hanging around their neck. Let them be beginners. Let them be clumsy. Let them love something simply because it makes their heart sing. Watch for the red flags. If your child gets upset because there isn't a right way to play, it might be time to step back. Or if the play stops the moment you walk away, it's a sign that their own inner engine needs a little space to restart. It's about giving them back their own rhythm. It's a small, quiet shift, but for their creative soul, it makes all the difference. It feels a bit scary, doesn't it? Stepping away from the constant noise we've been told is necessary for their growth. But there's a quiet magic waiting in the gaps, the little spaces we usually try so hard to fill with activities. Today, let's talk about the cure. It's simpler and much more beautiful than any expensive educational kit you could buy. We've forgotten that boredom isn't a problem to be solved. It's actually a sacred invitation for a child's mind. In those moments where nothing is happening, something profound begins to stir deep inside their growing imagination. Think of silence as the fertilizer. Without those quiet patches of time, the seeds of creativity just don't have the room to sprout. When we stop the constant stream of edutainment, we finally allow them to hear the rhythm of their own inner voice. It's okay if they complain they're bored. That's just the sound of their creativity waking up from a very long nap. Give them the gift of an empty afternoon. Watch what happens when the world goes quiet and they are left with themselves. We often think more is better. More buttons, more lights, more smart features that end up doing all the thinking for them. What if we replaced those doing toys with being materials? This is the heart of what we call loose parts theory. Loose parts are things that don't have a single, fixed purpose. They are humble objects waiting for a story to claim them. A plastic phone will always just be a phone, but a wooden block, it can be a car, a cake, or a skyscraper. Suddenly, a simple box isn't just trash. It's a spaceship heading for Mars or a cozy cave for a very tired bear. Pieces of fabric become capes, rushing rivers, or the silken walls of a hidden kingdom tucked under the dining table. And then there's sand. It's the ultimate loose part, endless, shifting, and perfectly happy to take any shape the heart desires. Nature provides the best tools. Sticks and stones don't come with instructions, and that is exactly where the beauty lies. Look at the difference. One room demands their attention, the other gently invites their exploration. One is loud, the other is open. In this new space, they aren't just consuming someone else's idea of play. They have finally become the masters of it. As they start to create, we have to change how we look at their work. We need to embrace the process over product rule. It's so tempting to ask, "What is it?" or tell them it's beautiful. But those words can sometimes pull them out of the flow. Instead, try saying something like, "I see how much focus you're putting into those blue lines." Focus on their effort, not the end. Praise the way they solved a tricky problem or how they tried 3 different ways to keep that tower from falling over. When we celebrate the journey, they learn it's okay to experiment, to fail, and to find joy in the trying itself. Let's get back to basics. Low-tech literacy is about the physical world. It's about the honest resistance of clay under small fingers. Mud isn't just dirt. It's a sensory symphony that forces the brain to fully engage with the here and now. And when we read physical books, without the flashy animations or the loud sound effects, something wonderful happens. The brain has to do the heavy lifting. It has to build the images, the colors, and the faces all by itself. This is how we build a strong inner theater. We give them the words, and we let them paint the pictures in their minds. Reclaiming their creativity isn't about buying the next big thing. It's about letting go of the stuff to make room for them. It takes courage to be still, but the rewards? Well, those are the things that stay with a child for a lifetime. Think of your child's mind as a vast, glowing forest, alive with the hum of 1,000 possibilities. In these early years, every single spark of curiosity creates a brand new path through that forest. It's a time of incredible wonder, where the brain is more flexible and open than it will ever be again. But beneath this magic, there's a quiet, physical process unfolding, one that scientists call synaptic pruning. Imagine a tiny, internal gardener walking through that forest of connections, deciding which paths are worth keeping. The brain wants to be efficient. It wants to make the most used roads the strongest and fastest. If a child is always told exactly what to do, the brain focuses on building the instruction road. But when we follow the rules too closely, those wild, winding trails of "what if" start to fade away. If the pathways for divergent thinking aren't walked upon, the brain physically removes them to save energy. It's a heartbreaking trade-off. We gain a child who follows directions, but we lose a little of their inner light. During these critical periods, the choices we make for their time have a physical weight on their future. Once the brain decides a creative pathway isn't needed, it's much harder to grow it back later in life. I know it sounds a bit heavy, doesn't it? But there is such a beautiful way to fix this balance. It's called the 80-20 rule for childhood, and it's a gentle reminder of what our children truly need. Imagine 80% of their free time as a wide-open, sun-drenched field that belongs only to them. This is self-directed play. No instructions, no correct way to build, just the music of their own thoughts. In this space, they are the architects of their own tiny worlds, and their brains are firing in every direction. The remaining 20% is for the adult-led activities, the lessons, the sports, and the gentle guidance. This slice is important, too, but it was never meant to be the whole pie. It's the seasoning, not the meal. When we respect this balance, we give their brains the chance to develop 2 incredible gifts. The first is executive function. It's the inner compass that helps them plan, focus, and lead themselves. They learn to stick with a problem, to breathe through frustration, and to try something new when things fall down. The second gift is cognitive flexibility, the ability to dance with change rather than being broken by it. These are the traits of the innovators, the dreamers, and the ones who will find beauty in the unexpected. When we step back and let them lead, we aren't doing less. We are giving them the room to become more. We are protecting those precious, wild pathways that make your child exactly who they were meant to be. The brain is a garden, my friend. Let's make sure we leave enough wild spaces for them to truly bloom. You know, we often think of creativity as a skill we need to build, like a brick wall. But really, it's more like a wildflower. It's already there, just waiting to bloom. Our job isn't to force it to grow. It's about clearing away the weeds, those rigid rules and noisy gadgets, to give that little spark the room it needs to breathe. When we step back, we aren't doing less. We are giving them the greatest gift, the freedom to become the dreamers and innovators our world so deeply needs tomorrow. Before we ask our children to think outside the box, let's take a long look at what's inside their toy box. Sometimes the simplest things hold the most magic. I'd love to hear from you. What is your child's favorite non-toy? Let's inspire each other below. And remember, this is just a friendly chat, not medical advice. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If this touched your heart, please subscribe and join us. Let's keep protecting those tiny steps together.